This leads to Marx's idea that what causes us to believe what we believe is not our own free will, but the people we hung out with. And why is that important? Because the people we hang out with are at the same level of status socially as we are. Right? If you're born into a poorer family in a poorer community, you're going to have people with values in that poor community that you're going to be inculcated with. And if you grow up in a rich family with a rich community, they're going to have values that kind of are pushed into your head. And you may think later, Marx says, that you chose these values, but you did not choose them. They again, like I said before, they acted upon you. Right? Those values came to you based on where you were. The material world around you produced your values. You did not produce them yourself. So this is kind of a slap in the face for us because, it's the same thing as determinism we talked about before. It's a slap in the face because we all like to believe that we have free will. Right? We all like to believe that we're free. Now, to be fair, Marx's theory of economic determinism is not going as far as the theory of metaphysical determinism. Metaphysical determinism is what we studied earlier with the pre-Socratics, the idea that every single thing we do is a product of prior causes or interactions, including the very feeling of choice. Marx isn't saying that, but he's saying that there's a strong level of determinism of the material world on our values that mostly determines what we believe and do. So sometimes people who believe in both determinism and free will, who believe that we're determined but also have some free will, sometimes they are called compatibilists because they're saying they're compatible. You can have, the world can be determined and we can be free. Or people make the same argument about God. They'll say, well, yeah, God is all powerful and he created the universe as it is, but he has a plan for the universe, but he still allows us to have free will within that plan, right? Some theologians make the same point, and Marx makes the similar point about economics. He says there's some wiggle room there, like at the edge of our beliefs, but most of the time, their beliefs and values are directly, literally produced by their socioeconomic circumstances. Now, Marx doesn't deny, and this is what I mean by compatibilism, he doesn't deny exceptions to the rule. He says, of course, there are rare exceptions, people who get around the system. And I'm sure some of you right now are thinking, well, wait a minute, but my cousin was born into poverty and he raised himself out and now he's a doctor, right? Whatever you're thinking. Of course there are exceptions. There's always going to be the M&Ms of the world, right? The rapper who started out in a low-income white community and rose up to become one of the famous rappers of all time, right? And that didn't happen for him until he was in his, I think, late 20s, maybe early 30s, I can't remember exactly. But the point is, those are exceptions, right? Marx isn't denying that some people are very exceptional, but Marx's point is that most people aren't. Right? Most of us continue to believe what our parents believed. And if you don't think Marx has a point here, just ask yourself, how many people do you know who are conservative, whose parents were also conservative, and their parents were also conservative? Right? How many people do you know who are liberal, whose parents were liberal, who they're also liberal? And here's an even bigger one, religion. Right? Most places, most of the time, people follow in the religion of their parents. Right? Most places, most of the time. Statistically speaking, Muslim parents have Muslim kids. Buddhist parents have Buddhist kids. Christian parents have Christian kids. Right? The apple doesn't fall that far from the tree. Right? Now, of course, a lot of times people will say, well, yeah, I'm still a Christian like my parents are, but my parents let me choose, right? I still chose my religion anyways. And Marx would say, well, maybe it sort of seemed like you chose, but you were always going to come back to that religion anyway. It's not, you didn't really choose. Not to mention that if your parents are Christian and they told you can be what you want, if you had really become a Hindu, and started like really getting into that religion and you were having a Hindu wedding, would your parents really be okay with that? Would there not be some sort of a one-on-one conversation? Again, I'm not making any generalizations. Every individual's different, every family's different in this regard, but Marx's point is that most of the time, the apple's pretty close to the tree, right? And even if it falls a little bit far away, even if, a kid goes through his atheist stage for a year, after in high school, he's going to come back to becoming a Muslim, but when the time comes, if his parents were Muslim. This is all according to Marx. Right? Marx's view is that there's a very tightly wound deterministic force in our social environment and our circumstances that is very difficult to get around. And he actually puts it in terms that he created terms in his philosophy that would help us illustrate the idea better. So the way he puts it is, he says, the substructure of society shapes or determines the superstructure. Right? So the substructure being literally the economic system, the machinery that is used, the industry. In our current society, part of the superstructure, the internet would be considered part of the substructure. The internet would be part of the substructure because it's sort of a medium through which a lot of industry takes place. And Marx says that substructure, that substratum, the basic level of society, produces the beliefs, which he calls the superstructure, which is everything else, all our ideas, all our Netflix shows, and all our books, and all our self-help books, and all the philosophies that are out there, from Deepak Chopra to Plato. These are all produced by the substructure of society. Right? So economic determinism, our values are produced by our socioeconomic circumstances. This is a founding core idea of Marx's philosophy.